Welcome to everyone to the Sonoma County CareerFest Agriculture and Natural Resources panel. I want to thank all of you panelists and attendees for being here today. I'm Tracy Batchelder. I'm the moderator of today's event, and I'm also the college and career counselor at Santa Rosa High School. We also have Rachel Kobe from Tomales High School, who will be monitoring the Q&A during the panel. Before we get started, I just want to let you know that we've disabled the chat for the attendees, but we want to encourage you to use the Q&A, it's at the bottom of the screen. And you can ask questions along the way of any of the panelists. We're going to wait until the end to answer most of the questions. But panelists might answer some of them along the way. Also, Rachel's going to be putting a link to an attendance form in the chat at the end of the panel for those students who are attending this for a class assignment and need proof of attendance. So with that, I am excited to introduce our special guest today. We have Kia Canning with Monarch Tractor, Kim Batchelder with the Sonoma County Agricultural Preservation and Open Space District, and Kevin C. with the Santa Rosa Junior College. And I'm going to start with Kia first and ask that you just briefly introduce yourself, give a short overview of your company, what you do in your role, and maybe include the education, the career path you took to get to where you are now.
Sure. So hi, everyone. I'm Kia. I work at Monarch Tractor. We are a small company located in Livermore, and we're building electric autonomous tractors. We're still pretty small, so right now we're really focused on the wine industry. But we're expanding. In college, I went to UC Davis and I studied biological and agricultural engineering. And then right after I graduated a year ago, I was hired as a hardware engineer. So now I'm building and designing transmissions and teaching our technicians how to do that too.
Great, thank you so much. And Kim, can you please briefly introduce yourself? Tell us about your organization and your role, and then also the career path you took.
Yeah, sounds good. Good morning, everybody. My name is Kim Batchelder. I work as a natural resources planner for the Sonoma County Agricultural Preservation and Open Space District. It took me 6 months to say that name in one breath. So it is a long name, but essentially what we do is protect land. And since 1990, we were founded by the voters of Sonoma County. And we've been able to protect over 120,000 acres here in Sonoma County, and that's about 25% of our county. And so I worked as a natural resources planner, which is essentially designed to help us figure out what to do with that land, how do we protect it, and then what are the priority, the conservation values that we want to protect on that land. The lands that we protect include agricultural lands, such as the dairy belt in outside of Petaluma. We include natural resources, including redwood forests and watersheds, as well as greenbelt spaces and recreational lands that sometimes we will protect and then transfer over to regional parks. So we've been in the business since 1990, and I have been working for the district for about 15 years. I came to Sonoma County in 2005 after kind of a circuitous route through Latin America and working in wilderness management and things like that. I graduated from high school in San Mateo and then came back to the Bay Area maybe 25 years later. So it's been a wild ride, but one of the things I've enjoyed doing is being opportunistic and finding whatever careers, interests that I've wanted to pursue. I've had the advantage of being able to do. So follow your heart, I guess, is the best key here.
Thank you. And then Kevin, most of us are familiar with the JC, but we may not know a lot about your department. So maybe you can introduce yourself and tell us just about your position at the JC, what your department does, and your path as well.
Great, thank you. And good morning, everybody. Great to be here with you. And great to follow Kim saying, follow your heart, because that's part of my story. So we'll get to that, I think. I am at the junior college. I teach in the wine studies program. So I teach the winemaking classes. One thing about education is you get a lot of opportunities to do different things. So I also got the opportunity to coordinate the wine studies program, meaning I interface a lot with the industry. So So I get to run around and talk to people on the job. I was at Lambert Bridge Winery this morning, and then I was over at an artist lab this morning. And now I'm here at Schoen Farm, the SRJC Schoen Farm, where we have our working winery and 90 acres of grapevines that we use in classes, and we grow grapes and sell to a lot of local wineries. So I get to coordinate the wine program in addition to teach. And then I got a third opportunity recently, which is to be the chair of the Ag and Natural Resources Department. So we have 11 programs in the department, including wine and viticulture, vet tech, animal science, sustainable ag, horticulture, floristry, all kinds of things. How I got here was I've had two careers, really, a business career and a science career. And my science career, I transitioned between the two, and this is probably the most relevant thing, through a career counseling process. So I always encourage people to take advantage of career counselors because it worked for me. I loved my business career, but I knew I didn't want to do it forever. And I discovered wine chemistry, and I feel like I've been in the right place ever since. So I got a master's in wine chemistry at UC Davis, and then a PhD in biochemistry at UCLA after undergrad at Whitworth College up in Spokane, Washington. And I graduated high school down in Belmont, California, right near where Kim grew up in San Mateo. So I went away for a while too, and then came back. So that's my story, and good to be here with everybody.
Great, thanks so much, Kevin. And I love we have such a diverse panel, so that's really fun. So Kia, I'm curious, just what sparked your interest in working in this type of career, and what do you love most about what you do?
Yeah, so I kind of bounced around a lot through undergrad. I was a lot of different majors, and I think I always found agriculture interesting. I grew up in Southern California in the city, so I didn't have very much exposure to it, but I think going to Davis exposed me to all kinds of things, and started studying ag and was also taking calculus. And so it felt like engineering was the right mix of things. And I think all of everything lined up so that, this job would be right for me. And now I really enjoy that our company is so small. So every day looks different because I wear a lot of hats, and we all wear a lot of hats. Everyone's really busy. And I get to work with my hands, which I think is cool. I think a lot of engineers end up sitting behind computers, or it's easy to kind of go down that path, but it's really fun that I get to actually build stuff. Yeah.
Great. And Kim, I know that you've been working in the field of natural resources for around 30 years. So how did you first get interested in that field, and what do you love most about what you do?
It's a great question. And I think that one of the things I've done is I've been able to follow things I really thought were my passion, but that passion changed over time. And so I remember my freshman, sophomore year at the University of Colorado, and my roommate at the time was a pre-med, and he knew exactly what he wanted to do. And I was like scratching my head. I have no idea what I want to do with my life. And so I started working with the U.S. Forest Service and wilderness management, and that became my passion. I started working with the U.S. Forest Service for probably 3 years while I was going to school and during the summer times. And it was just a fantastic way to work my summers. And it was building up professional experience. But still, I thought wilderness management was my dream job. But then I decided to join the Peace Corps and went to Costa Rica and discovered the joys of tropical forestry and tropical conservation. And so that was my new passion. And it was something I was able to dive deeply into and worked with a number of nonprofit organizations. I ended up getting my master's degree in tropical forest conservation. And so again, it was something that I really felt near and dear to my heart, was to conserve forest and do it with community participation. And so all these things kind of helped me understand what I wanted to do with my life. And I was able to earn a decent living with it. I lived in Mexico, Costa Rica. I worked throughout Latin America for a number of years, and ended up living in Santa Rosa because I got a job offer from the Sonoma County Ag and Open Space District to do land management on the ground. And so that was the thing that was really something that was missing as I worked for different nonprofits like the Nature Conservancy in Mexico, is I was a little bit hands off on those jobs. I was working with partners, which I absolutely loved, but I didn't get a chance to work on the ground, making decisions that would have a direct impact on the conservation of those resources. So I think that would be the part that I really enjoy most, is being able to work with partners and people, landowners who have a responsibility to preserve the land and manage it as best as possible for the protection of natural resources.
Great. Yeah, I think like what I've heard from all three of you is just like outside work and hands-on work, that you all have really enjoyed that piece of your career. So it's interesting. I also imagine that the students watching this panel are, they're probably curious, how does one go about getting a job in these fields and what type of skills are needed? So I wanted to start with Kevin, as an instructor and program coordinator at the JC, what skills do you rely on your current work, and when and how did you start to develop those skills? And yours it's a little different because you're in a teaching position, but I'm just curious from that perspective.
You're right. I'm in a teaching position. So for me, what attracted me here was the love of learning. And a lot of it is the subject matter, learning about wine, learning about the chemistry of wine. I want to know what goes on with all the atoms that make up a wine and give it its great flavor. And so I get to indulge that interest in this job. Now, there are a lot of other skills that go into teaching. People say with teaching, 2/3 of it is being organized and caring about the students. So if you care about students and you're relatively organized, you're going to be in pretty good shape. And then, of course, subject matter expertise and loving what it is that you're teaching. Now, in addition to that, I get to wear these other hats, the administrative hats of coordinating the wine program and being department chair. And for those, I use a lot of the skills that I developed in my career. First, the business skills. I was an accountant and worked as a certified public accountant for a large national firm. I get to use those skills now because we have a working winery here that we try to turn a profit on every year, that we try to make profitable. So I get to use my accounting skills there. I get to use a lot of the administrative skills I developed in business in being the department chair, because a lot of that is being sensitive to what other people need in the department and trying to bring resources to each of those individual instructors so they can get their jobs done and we can be a better team and serve our students better and better every year. So I sometimes say I'm a jack of all trades and master of none because I've had such a varied career, but each of those skills I think have come in handy. So I think no matter where you start, building the skills slowly but surely, you always have a chance in most jobs to use many of those skills that you've learned.
Yeah. And Takia, I know that you have interned for Monarch Tractor. I think that's where you started with them, and then were hired on. And I'm curious, do you feel like you developed a lot of your skills for your current job during that internship? And what are the skills that you need for the type of work that you're doing now?
Yeah, so I did start as an intern. I think being an intern was valuable because it kind of showed me how the company ran, and I got familiar with all the people. So I definitely think that was a valuable experience, but I think the skills I use now were much more developed in college. And I guess when I say that, it's not necessarily the technical knowledge or, specific things from specific classes, but more learning how to learn. And I think college and the degree that I pursued kind of taught me how to balance a lot of things all at once, work well under pressure, work with other people. And I think those are all of the skills that really serve me well now. Because at the end of the day, like what I'm doing is really just nuts and bolts, and anyone can do that. But I think learning how to learn and communicate with other people were the most valuable skills I took away from college that I use now.
Mm-hmm. So more the soft skills then you're talking about.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And Kim, in your job, I'm curious if you could answer this from both your job as a natural resources planner, and then also your prior experience in tropical forestry, what are some of the skills that you rely on most, and when did you start to develop those skills?
That's a fantastic question. I think the types of skills I probably rely on most is communication through both on a verbal basis as well as a written basis. The ability to provide concise description about what your needs are from a conservation perspective. And I've done a lot of reporting out. We've put together important information such as management plans or certification assessments for landowners to really describe what we wanted to accomplish from a conservation perspective. And if you aren't able to provide those in a concise manner, you just get lost. You're required to kind of synthesize a lot of data, a lot of information, and hone it down to really what are the most essential information that the landowner or your client needs to know. That ability to communicate that in either a report that might have also some graphics that make sense. Doing that in a professional way really is probably key to the work that I do. And then furthermore, in presentations, I think there's a lot of opportunity to present your thoughts in whatever field you're in, especially natural resources. There's always things such as climate change or sea level rise or the conservation of unique species or watersheds. We really have to articulate that in a way that really resonates with whoever it might be, from a third grader to a community that probably is not as engaged as much. You have to present this information in a way that makes sense, that makes a difference in their lives. And so you try to learn exactly how to condense all this really valuable information in ways that are logical and make sense to everyone's lives.
Yeah. So yeah, it sounds like those interpersonal skills and then also, yeah, distilling down information is super important. And I imagine with all of your jobs, it's similar, that communication piece. You've all talked a bit about that. So Kevin, the title of this panel is Agriculture and Natural Resources. This is a huge field. It has hundreds of jobs in it. What do you recommend to students who are interested in this field to help them begin to narrow down their interest?
You're right, it's a huge field. What I recommend is get out there and do something. And what I mean by that is get out from behind your desk or out of your car or out of your house and experience working in the field. And that could be just job shadowing for one day. But call somebody in the industry that you think you might be interested in and ask them if you can job shadow. People love to help others find the right job. And people love to have others come and job shadow. So how do you find where you want to job shadow? I think there's a couple of ways. One is just, what are you curious about? When do you perk up when you hear someone talk about their field? If you hear someone talk about wine and you perk up a little bit, or you hear someone talk about growing grapes and you perk up a little bit, or natural resources management or sustainable agriculture, and then follow that. See if you can job shadow somebody for a day or a week. And then the other thing you can do is get a mentor, because like job shadowing, people love to be mentors. Sometimes it's tough to approach a mentor. One of the things I wish I had done when I first started out was I had a great mentor, but I didn't even know what questions to ask. What I should have asked is, what questions should I ask? My mentor knew what I should be thinking about at that point in my career. If I had only asked that person what I should be thinking about, what questions I would ask, what I should do next, who else I might talk to, I would have gotten a lot further along a lot faster. So I think that curiosity, getting out there and doing something, experience different things. You'll learn more being out there and doing it, I have found, than just thinking about it or reading about it. And then you follow those little threads that you're curious about, and hopefully that leads to a job that you really love.
Yeah. Yeah, not being afraid to ask questions is huge. And I think trying to remember that even though, someone who's mentoring you or you're job shadowing, that they've been in your shoes at some point in their lives. So I think that's really important to remember too. And Kim, you've talked a little bit about both your domestic and international work. Again, there's lots of opportunities, job opportunities in this field, in both domestic and international. So what advice would you give to students who are looking, who are thinking about a job and how they, how they can start to narrow down their interests?
Yeah, I think I really agree with Kevin in trying to find those mentors, or internships are always a valuable way to gain experience in a field that you might be passionate about but have no idea how to go about this. I get calls, emails all the time about, how do I get into your field? Like, well, there's lots of routes. It just, you have to find the route that works best for you, but also do stuff that you enjoy doing. I mean, you're going to be in a career for 25, 30 years. I've changed, pretty much every 5 or 10 years, the responsibilities that I've been involved with. For instance, I've been in situations where I worked with a nature conservancy in Mexico, and I started out as like the community conservation specialist, working with different communities throughout Mexico. But then I really wanted to do conservation forestry. So I kind of molded the job towards that end. So be proactive in the type of work that you want to do, and learn as much as you can from people who are in the field, in the business that you're interested in, and follow those passions so that you are doing something that you enjoy doing every day, that you go to work, that it's something that's joyful for you, that you're driven to do, and that you're constantly learning about every field that you're involved with.
Great, thanks. Okay, so I'm going to go to Kia, and I'm going to take you back to high school for a minute. And just want you to think back to when you were in high school, and if there's any advice you would give to students today if they're looking to work in specifically the field of agricultural engineering, but just in general, the ag and natural resources field.
Yeah, I think this kind of echoes what other people have said too, but I think when I was in high school, I remember feeling so stressed that I was going to make the wrong decision and that would derail my whole career path somehow. And I wish that I knew that there's no wrong choice, and follow what you're interested in, and then, like Kevin said, be proactive about it. And I wish that I had talked to more professionals when I was that age. And even people in college, I think the same was true for trying to pick a major. I didn't know what I was going to want, and I wish I had kind of reached out to more people. So I think to circle back, I would say don't stress about what the right path is going to look like, or where you're going to end up, or if it's going to somehow derail the right path, because there is no right path. And I think just keep following what you're interested in. And also think about the things that you think you're good at and strong in, and try to make practical decisions around what your strengths are. Yeah,
that's great advice, especially looking at your strengths and interests and letting that guide you along the way, and not getting too stressed out. It's easy for us to say, I know, but I think it's great advice. And Kevin, you work with students all the time. So kind of the same question, what kind of guidance do you give to your students who want to pursue a career in this field?
Well, let's see. If I think back to high school and what I didn't learn and what I wish I knew, first of all, I think what Kia said is perfect. No decision's a bad decision. I was obsessed with making the perfect decision. I found out that the way I learn is I make a decision, and then when I get out there and do it, I get feedback. And that's a much faster way to get to where I want to be than trying to make the perfect decision. So I wish I'd heard that in high school. The other thing that I really wish I'd heard is that it's really difficult to get rich quick, but it's really easy to get rich slowly. And I don't mean that just in terms of money, though money is one way. It's easy to count money. And so So that's one way we look at riches. And you can accumulate money, a lot of it easily, if you take your time and you do things right and you do things slowly and you let each achievement build on the next. But you can also have those riches in relationships. Every day you can treat people well, and every day you can get 10% or a tenth of 1% better at your relationships with others. If you get a mentor, each time you approach somebody, you get a little bit better at asking for help, at asking the right questions, a little bit better at your knowledge of your job. So I think in riches in your job, in your relationships, monetary. I wish someone had told me, you can't get rich quick, because that's the family I came out of, but you can get rich slowly, and that is easy to do. So just make each day build on the last one and get a little bit better every day. And that's true with finding the right path, I think, too. Get out there, make a decision, try it, see if you like it, and then it leads to the next decision and the next, and pretty soon you're in a wonderful place where you're passionate about what you do and you're very successful.
Great, thank you so much. So that's it for our moderated questions. So I wanted to ask Rachel to turn on her camera and join us, and she can ask some of the questions that the attendees had.
All right. So Kia, I think this first one's for you. Kind of a clarification, but also a question. Do you help build transmissions? It sounds like the student's looking into maybe being an automotive technician, and how does maybe your job as an engineer relate to kind of the automotive field?
Yeah, so tractor transmissions and automotive transmissions are really similar. So I do build and make and assemble the transmissions for our tractors. It's not something I ever thought I'd be doing, but I feel like that's everyone. We all, hindsight's 2020. I think it is pretty similar to being an automotive technician. It's a lot of doing stuff in the shop, using fabrication equipment, welding, sanding, grinding, using a lathe. It's all really similar to what you might see as an automotive tech, and it's really, really hands-on. So I'm not totally clear on what information you're looking for, but if you want to email me after this, you definitely can. I'm sure someone will send it out.
Thank you. And Kevin, I think this one can be good for you for the next one. Can you maybe talk a little bit about how biology and agriculture can go together if you're maybe thinking about studying biology, but interested in the agriculture field?
Biology is a perfect entry into the agricultural field. There's so many opportunities. In my area, in wine and viticulture, we're always looking for trained scientists who can work in a lab. And lab jobs often lead to greater responsibility within the winery. Maybe you decide you love the agricultural side, and so you'll go out and start sampling grapes. You'll start working with growers. Say if you work for a winery, you work in grower relations. Having that biology knowledge means you understand what everybody's talking about at a scientific level, and that's huge. And that can be true in other areas of agriculture as well. Maybe you love animal nutrition. You become passionate about the fact that we need to feed our animals well in order to feed ourselves well, in order to be more efficient. Maybe there are nutrition aspects to reducing the impact of climate change through how animals graze and are fed. So there are a million things you can do with that biology degree, because so much of ag is science-based. And so you don't have to necessarily have studied exactly the right thing, but if you love science, you can often apply that in many different areas, and you can quickly learn from your base of knowledge. You can quickly learn what you need to know for an individual job. So tremendous opportunities.
Thank you. Tracy, do we have time for maybe one more?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Let's see. This one, it wasn't specified to anyone, but maybe Kim, I'll ask you this one. How much of your job specifically relates to sustainability?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's a critical factor to our work. What we're trying to do is sustain the lands that are throughout Sonoma County. So we try to look at the way San Jose or the Bay Area has developed with housing everywhere. And Sonoma County in 1990 decided that's not a role we want to follow. We want to do something more innovative and try to limit housing being developed on every hillside. So sustaining the land and sustaining agriculture is something very passionate for us. We do so by helping landowners such as a dairy farmer who wants to protect their land for future generations and yet don't have this constant incentive to sell out to a developer. So we're trying to compensate them for the land, the value they're foregoing, and helping them, and they can then invest that money that we provide them by protecting their land. They can now invest in their own dairy operation. So that's one way that we try to sustain agriculture, for example.
Great. Okay, any more, Rachel, or?
I think that's kind of it. I was trying to answer some as we were going.
Great.
Yeah, so I think that probably wraps us up.
Okay, great. Well, I want to thank all of our panelists for coming today. We really appreciate your time. We appreciate your insight into your careers in the field of ag and natural resources. Thank you so much. I also want to thank our attendees for coming and asking thoughtful questions. Before we end, I just want to give a plug for the next CareerFest hands-on workshop. It's starting at noon today. It's called Gaining a Competitive Advantage and Learning the Power of a Strong Network and Being Organized. So that is a hands-on workshop. It's not too late to register for it. You can go to the CareerFest website. Once you register, you'll get a Zoom link right away. So we hope you'll take advantage of that and the other sessions that are coming up later today and tomorrow. So again, thank you all for coming. And with that, we'll end the panel. Thank you.
Thanks, folks.